What if just a few simple daily habits could completely shift your energy, mindset, and confidence? In a world full of distractions and pressures, mastering a few core routines can be the difference between feeling scattered and being unstoppable. These aren't just good habits, they're non negotiables for any woman who's ready to own her day and elevate her life. Let's talk about the power of intentional routines and how they build long-term confidence. Most people assume confidence is something you're either born with or something you magically feel on days when everything goes right. But that's not how it works. Confidence doesn't appear out of thin air. It's built brick by brick through the quiet, repeated actions you take when no one's watching, especially the ones you do daily. Intentional routines are those bricks. They're the structure that holds you up when things around you start to shake. And they aren't about perfection, they're about purpose. When you choose a routine and stick to it, not just because it's trendy, not because someone told you to, but because it supports your goals, you're sending a message to yourself that you can be trusted. You're saying, I show up for me. And the more you show up, the more your brain starts to internalize that belief. That's the foundation of confidence. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's quiet discipline repeated over time. And for women especially, in a world that constantly demands your attention and energy in 1,000 different directions, having intentional routines is one of the few things you can fully own. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you build credibility with yourself. Whether that's waking up when your alarm goes off the first time, setting aside 10 minutes for mindfulness, or choosing to prep your meals so you eat something that fuels you, these aren't just chores on a list. They're declarations, little moments where you say, I matter. And that mindset, that inner respect for your own time and well-being, that's where real confidence comes from. Not from validation, not from approval, from consistency. Now, let's be clear. Routines are not about rigidity. They're not about living in a straight line. Life doesn't move that way. Things will interrupt you. Schedules will get messy. But the point of having intentional routines is that when everything gets thrown off, you still have a base to return to. It's like having a compass in chaos. You don't have to think or second guess your way through the day. You've already decided who you want to be, and your routines reflect that decision. The beauty of intentionality is in its focus. You stop wasting time on decisions that don't move the needle. You know what matters to you, and you've built your habits around that. It might be 30 minutes of reading every night to keep your mind sharp. It might be making your bed each morning to signal a clean start. It might be journaling, working out, walking without headphones, or setting firm boundaries around your work hours. It doesn't matter what it looks like from the outside. What matters is the clarity it brings you on the inside. Confidence doesn't show up in the moment you're tested. It shows up in the days, weeks, and months before, when you were doing the work that no one saw, when you were practicing discipline, when you were choosing long-term over short-term, when you were living on purpose, not on autopilot. That's the kind of confidence that doesn't crack when someone questions you. That doesn't fade when things go wrong because it's not built on external outcomes. It's built on internal proof, your own proof, proof that you've done the work, that you've trained your mind, that you've shown up enough times to know you can do it again. Routines also give your day rhythm, and rhythm creates momentum. When you follow a rhythm, your mind doesn't fight you every step of the way. You waste less energy deciding what to do, and that frees up mental space to focus on what really matters. It lowers anxiety, it reduces decision fatigue, and it makes you feel grounded. That sense of grounding is confidence in motion. You're not constantly reacting to life. You're responding, you're choosing, you're leading your own day instead of letting it lead you. And when you do that day after day, you start showing up different. You walk into rooms differently, you speak differently, you carry a quiet kind of certainty that people notice even if they can't name it. Boundaries are often misunderstood. People hear the word and think of walls, of shutting people out, of being difficult or confrontational. But real boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about drawing a clear line that defines how you protect your energy, your time, and your peace. They're an essential act of self-respect, not a rejection of others. When you set a boundary, you're telling the world, and more importantly, yourself, what you value. And when you honor those values consistently, you stop operating from a place of guilt or resentment and start showing up from a place of strength. For women, this is even more critical because from a young age, society conditions women to accommodate, to please, to say yes when they really mean no. Whether it's taking on extra responsibilities, making room for someone else's comfort at the expense of their own, or absorbing emotional labor that no one else is even acknowledging. There's an unspoken expectation to be everything for everyone. But the truth is, without boundaries, you slowly lose the ability to be anything for yourself. You drain your energy on things that don't align with your priorities. You say yes out of obligation instead of intention. And that's where burnout starts, not from being busy, but from being misaligned. Boundaries create clarity. They remove the mental tug of war that happens when you feel pulled in too many directions. When you set a boundary, you simplify your decision making. You no longer ask, should I do this to keep the peace? You ask, does this respect the peace I've built? That's a completely different filter, and it's one that keeps you focused, present, and emotionally grounded. Because every time you allow something that goes against your boundary, you're not just letting someone else cross a line, you're stepping over your own values. There's also the internal side of boundaries. It's not just about saying no to others, it's about saying no to yourself in the moments that sabotage your progress. That means shutting down the negative self-talk, cutting off comparisons that steal your joy, and not allowing your past to dictate your present. It means holding yourself accountable when you want to scroll instead of sleep, when you want to please instead of protect, or when you want to perform instead of pause. Those are the hardest boundaries to hold, the ones where no one else would even know you crossed them, but they're the ones that build real character. And boundaries aren't rigid rules that make life cold or mechanical. They're flexible frameworks that keep your life intentional. You can adjust them as you grow, as your needs change, as your relationships evolve. But what doesn't change is the principle behind them: respect. You respect your time, so you protect it. You respect your energy, so you manage it. You respect your goals, so you prioritize them. You respect your relationships, so you stop watering one-sided ones. And you respect yourself, so you stop bending just to make others more comfortable. A lot of people fear setting boundaries because they think it will cause conflict, but the conflict is already there. It's just internal. You've been carrying the weight of unmet needs, unspoken frustrations, and unclear expectations. Setting a boundary doesn't create tension. It reveals the tension that's already been buried. And while that might feel uncomfortable in the short term, it's also what opens the door to healthier communication, deeper relationships, and more authentic connection. Because when you show people where you stand, you give them the chance to meet you there or step aside. Either way, you stop pretending, you stop performing, you start living from a place of truth. When boundaries become part of your daily rhythm, you begin to filter your day through intention instead of obligation. You say yes because you want to, not because you're afraid not to. You leave space in your schedule for rest without apologizing for it. You take time for yourself without feeling selfish. And you start showing up in your own life as the lead, not the background support. That's not controlling, that's clarity, that's alignment. And when you get that alignment right, your whole life shifts.